Hey everyone, welcome back. Tonight we're diving into a story that hits different, and I've got the Minecraft parkour going to keep things nice and smooth while we unpack this mess. Sometimes the smallest slights snowball into the biggest fallout, and this one still makes me shake my head. Before we dive in, I want to give a quick shout out to everyone who's been tuning in, dropping comments, and supporting the channel. Truly, thank you. It means more than you know. So here's the thing, this isn't just about one ruined Christmas. It's about patterns, about people who think cruelty comes with an expiration date, and what happens when someone finally stops playing nice. You're going to want to hear how this unfolds. So it starts innocently enough. Secret Santa season rolls around at our small office, and I draw Jessica's name. For context, Jessica and I weren't exactly close, but we were cordial enough. Professional. She'd mentioned a few weeks earlier during a team lunch that she was looking for a good planner to stay organized for the new year. Something customizable with her initials. I thought, perfect. I can actually get her something thoughtful instead of just grabbing a generic candle or a Starbucks gift card like half the office does every year. I spent weeks on this. I'm talking actual effort here. I found this beautiful leather-bound planner, got her initials embossed on the front in gold lettering, picked a color I knew she liked based on her desk accessories. It wasn't cheap either. I genuinely wanted her to feel seen, you know, like someone had been paying attention. I wrapped it carefully, added a nice card, the whole thing. I was actually excited to see her reaction. The day of the office party arrives and we're all gathered in the break room. There's eggnog, cookies, the usual holiday chaos. We start opening gifts one by one, and when Jessica gets to hers, I'm watching from across the room. She unwraps it, opens the box, and for a split second I see her look at it. Then she laughs, not a polite chuckle, a full, loud laugh. She holds it up and goes, "Oh wow, this is so basic. It looks like something from a dollar store." The room goes silent, like dead silent. Someone's half-chewed cookie is probably still in their mouth, frozen mid-bite. I'm sitting there feeling my face get hot, trying to keep my expression neutral, but inside, I'm absolutely mortified. She keeps going, flipping through it like it's a joke, saying she thought Secret Santa was supposed to be fun, not boring. A couple people tried to change the subject, but the damage is done. I spent weeks and actual money on something she specifically said she wanted, and she just trashed it in front of everyone like I'd handed her garbage. I didn't say anything. I just smiled, nodded, and made a mental note. Jessica had shown me exactly who she was, and I wasn't going to forget it. Fast forward to this year, November rolls around, and guess who's in charge of organizing Secret Santa? That's right, me. I'd volunteered back in October, and nobody else wanted the job anyway. I start putting together the list, sending out the email, setting the budget, all the usual logistics. And here's the thing, Jessica's name isn't on the list. I genuinely thought this couldn't get worse. I was wrong. Jessica notices pretty quickly. She comes up to my desk one afternoon, all casual, and asks who drew her name this year. I look up from my computer and give her my best pleasant smile. I tell her we're keeping the group a little smaller this year, just sticking with the people who really appreciated the tradition and wanted to participate. She blinks at me like she's waiting for the punchline. I go back to typing. She stands there for a second, processing, then asks if she's included. I shake my head, still smiling. Nope, she's not. I explain that after some feedback from last year, we decided to make it more intimate, more meaningful. Keep it to people who, actually value the effort others put in. Her face starts to change. I can see the gears turning. She asks what I mean by that. I stay calm. I remind her very gently that last year she made it pretty clear she didn't enjoy her gift. I tell her I didn't want to put anyone in the position of drawing her name and risking a similar reaction. I say it's nothing personal, just trying to protect people's feelings and keep the vibe positive. Then I go back to my email like the conversation's over. That's when everything unraveled. Jessica's voice gets louder. She demands to know if I'm seriously excluding her over a joke from last year. She says she was kidding, that I'm being ridiculous, that everyone knows Secret Santa gifts are hit or miss. I stay seated, keep my tone even, and tell her it didn't feel like a joke when she said it in front of the entire office. I remind her that I'd put thought into that gift, that she'd literally mentioned wanting a planner, and that her reaction was humiliating. She calls me petty. She says I'm holding a grudge over nothing, By now, people are starting to notice. A few coworkers glance over, pretending to focus on their screens but clearly listening. Jessica's face is red now, and she's getting louder. She accuses me of abusing my role as organizer, of being unprofessional, of making it personal. I just shrug and say it is personal. Secret Santa's supposed to be fun, and last year she made it the opposite of that for me. So yeah, I'm not including her this year. She considered out, she explodes, and I mean fully loses it. She starts yelling about how I'm creating a hostile work environment, how this is cliquey and exclusionary, how she's going to talk to HR. I tell her she's more than welcome to do that, and that I'm happy to explain to HR exactly why I made the decision I did. She storms out of the room, slamming the door behind her hard enough that the picture frames on the wall rattle. You almost have to admire the audacity. The fallout is immediate. Half the office thinks I'm a legend. A couple people come up to me later and quietly say they're glad I stood my ground, that Jessica's reaction last year was out of line and someone needed to call her on it. One guy even says he's been on the receiving end of her mean comments before, and he's glad she's finally getting a taste of consequences. But the other half, they think I'm petty. They say I should have let it go, that it's been a year, that excluding her is childish and makes the whole thing awkward for everyone. I don't care. Honestly, I sleep fine at night. Jessica had a choice last year. She could have been gracious or at the very least polite. She could have said thank you and moved on, even if the gift wasn't her style. But she chose to humiliate me in front of our co-workers for no reason other than she thought it was funny. And now she's mad that I remembered. The Secret Santa exchange happens a couple weeks later, and it's genuinely nice. The group is smaller, yeah, but the vibe is warm. People actually put thought into their gifts. There's laughter, appreciation, real gratitude. Jessica doesn't attend the party. She stays at her desk the whole time, headphones on, pointedly ignoring us. A few people feel awkward about it, but most of us just enjoy the event without the tension. She hasn't spoken to me since. We pass each other in the hallway and she looks straight ahead like I don't exist. In meetings, she directs all her comments to other people, never makes eye contact with me. Honestly, I'm fine with it. I'm not losing sleep over someone who thought public humiliation was an acceptable response to a thoughtful gift. Some people have asked me if I regret it, if I think I took it too far. And look, I get it. Holding someone accountable a year later probably seems extreme to people who weren't in that room, who didn't feel what I felt. But here's the thing, actions have consequences. Jessica learned that the hard way, and if that makes me petty, then I guess I'm petty. But at least I'm petty with boundaries. The holidays come and go, and the office eventually moves on. But every now and then, someone will bring it up. Usually newer employees who heard the story secondhand. And every time, the reactions are split. Some people think I'm a hero. Others think I'm bitter. I don't need everyone to agree with me. I just needed Jessica to understand that you don't get to treat people like garbage and then act surprised when they stop including you in nice things. Poetic justice doesn't get much cleaner than that. Jessica wasn't the only coworker who thought public humiliation was funny, but the next person learned that HR doesn't find it quite so amusing. So last year, I planned what I thought was a nice birthday dinner. Nothing fancy, nothing over the top, just me and a few close friends at my favorite Italian place in town. I'd been looking forward to it for weeks. The kind of low-key celebration where you actually get to talk to people instead of yelling over music, you know. I thought it sounded perfect. My roommate Emma apparently disagreed. The second I mentioned it, she started in with the jokes. She called it sad. She asked if I was really that boring. She wanted to know if we were all going to sit around knitting afterward, or maybe play bingo. The kicker was when she said she'd rather stay home alone than suffer through my quote-unquote grandma party. She laughed every time she brought it up, like it was the funniest observation anyone had ever made. I tried to laugh along at first. I didn't want to seem sensitive or like I couldn't take a joke. But honestly, it stung. Every single comment felt like a little jab, and by the time my birthday actually rolled around, I felt kind of embarrassed about the whole thing. I still went, and I had a good time with my friends, but Emma's words were stuck in my head the entire night. I kept wondering if everyone else thought it was lame too, if they were just being polite. It wasn't the celebration I'd imagined. Emma never apologized. She never even acknowledged that maybe her constant mockery had been a little much. She just moved on like nothing happened, and I told myself to let it go. It was just one night. No big deal. But here's the thing about comments like that. They don't just disappear. They sit there, they fester. And when my birthday started approaching this year, I realized I didn't want to go through that again. This time I decided to do something different. I wanted to plan something bigger, something I'd actually be excited about without second guessing myself. So I organized a weekend cabin trip with a group of friends. Nothing extravagant, just a cozy spot in the mountains, some hiking, maybe a bonfire, good food, good company. The kind of trip where you unplug and actually enjoy yourself. I sent out invites to the people I wanted there, created a group chat to coordinate everything, and started planning. Emma wasn't on the invite list. I didn't make a big announcement about it. I just didn't include her. I figured she wouldn't even notice since she'd made it pretty clear last year that my idea of fun wasn't her style. But of course, she noticed. One night she walked into the living room while I was on my laptop, going over cabin details with a couple of friends in the group chat. She glanced at my screen and her face changed. She asked when we were leaving, casual, like she assumed she was coming. I looked up and said she wasn't invited. You could see the shock register on her face. She actually took a step back. She asked why, like the idea of not being included was completely incomprehensible. So I reminded her. I brought up last year. I told her I remembered every single comment she'd made about my birthday being sad and boring. I said I didn't want someone there who thought my celebrations were pathetic. I wanted to spend my birthday with people who actually wanted to be there. She immediately got defensive. She said it was just a joke. She said I was being dramatic and holding a grudge over nothing. She tried to laugh it off again, like I was overreacting to harmless teasing. But I didn't budge. I told her jokes are supposed to be funny for everyone involved, and last year didn't feel funny to me. It felt mean. She didn't know what to say to that. She just stood there for a second, then turned and walked to her room without another word. You almost have to admire the audacity of mocking someone's plans and then being offended when they don't invite you the next time around. That's when everything unraveled. The next few days were tense. Emma started slamming doors. She'd walk past me in the kitchen and not say a word, just give me this icy stare like I'd committed some unforgivable betrayal. She left passive-aggressive notes around the apartment. One on the fridge about cleaning up after myself, even though I'm the tidier one. Another by the coffee maker reminding me to replace things when I used the last of them, which I always do anyway. It was petty and transparent and honestly kind of exhausting. But that wasn't even the worst part. Emma started reaching out to our mutual friends. She spun the whole thing like I was excluding her over nothing, like I was being unreasonable and holding on to some imaginary slight. She painted herself as the victim, the roommate who made one harmless joke a year ago and was now being punished for it. She conveniently left out the relentless mocking, the repeated comments, the way she made me feel small about something I was excited about. At first I was worried. I thought maybe people would believe her version. Maybe they'd think I was overreacting. But here's the thing. Our mutual friends were there last year. They heard the comments. They saw how Emma went on and on about my quote boring grandma party. Some of them had even told me at the time that her jokes were kind of harsh. So when Emma tried to rally support, it didn't go the way she expected. A couple of friends reached out to me privately and said they remembered exactly what happened. One of them told me she'd felt uncomfortable listening to Emma mock me back then, but hadn't said anything at the time. Another said she wasn't surprised I didn't invite her after the way she'd acted. It's like watching someone try to rewrite history and realizing everyone else kept the receipts. Emma didn't get the sympathy she was looking for, and I think that made her even angrier. The passive-aggressive notes got more frequent. The door slamming got louder. She started making pointed comments whenever my friends came over, little digs about how I must be so busy with my exciting plans. It was like living with someone who was perpetually annoyed at my existence. I kept my head down and focused on the trip. I wasn't going to let her ruin this birthday too. My friends and I finalized the details, split the cost of the cabin, made a grocery list, planned out hikes and activities. The group chat was full of excitement and jokes and countdowns. It felt good. It felt like exactly what I wanted. The weekend finally came, and it was perfect. We drove up to the cabin, spent the days hiking and exploring, made huge meals together, stayed up late around the fire talking and laughing. Nobody mocked my plans. Nobody made me feel like I was boring or lame for wanting something low-key and meaningful. It was exactly the kind of birthday I'd wanted all along. When I got back home, Emma barely acknowledged me. She asked how it was in this flat, disinterested tone, and I said it was great. She just nodded and went back to whatever she was doing. The tension in the apartment has been unbearable ever since. We're basically just coexisting at this point. Two people who happen to share a lease and nothing else. Part of me wonders if I should have just invited her and tried to move past last year. Maybe it would have been easier. Maybe the apartment wouldn't feel like a Cold War zone right now. But then I remember how she made me feel, how her words sat with me for months, how she never once considered that maybe her jokes weren't as harmless as she thought. And honestly, I don't regret it. This year I got to celebrate my birthday, surrounded by people who actually care about me, people who didn't spend the lead up tearing down my plans for a laugh. Emma had a choice last year. She could have been kind or at least neutral. She chose mockery, and now she's upset that her words had consequences. Our mutual friends have mostly stayed out of it, but the ones who matter know the full story. They know this isn't about one comment or one joke. It's about a pattern of behavior, about someone who thought cruelty was funny and then got defensive when it wasn't received that way. Emma can slam all the doors she wants and leave all the passive-aggressive notes in the world. It doesn't change the fact that she created this situation. I'm not sure how much longer we'll be living together. The lease is up in a few months and I'm already looking at other options. I don't think either of us wants to renew. And honestly, that's probably for the best. Some friendships, or in this case, roommate situations, have an expiration date. You can only take so many jabs before you realize the person doing the jabbing doesn't actually respect you. So, yeah. Emma mocked my birthday plans, and this year I didn't invite her. She's furious, the apartment is tense, and she's trying to paint me as the villain. But I know the truth, and so do the people who were actually there. Sometimes the cruelest cuts come wrapped in the phrase just a joke, and one Redditor decided their partner's sense of humor had crossed a line one too many times. So let me set the scene here. My partner and I had been together for about 3 years at this point, and for the most part, things were good. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but I genuinely thought we were solid. Except there was this one thing. This one habit he had that started small and just kept getting worse. He thought it was funny to make jokes about me in front of other people. At first, it really was harmless. We'd be at dinner with friends and he'd make some comment about how I can't cook to save my life, or how I have no sense of direction and got us lost on the way to the restaurant. Little jabs, you know, the kind of thing couples do sometimes. I'd laugh it off, roll my eyes, play along. I didn't want to be the person who couldn't take a joke, and honestly, I didn't think much of it. But then it started escalating. The comments got more personal, more frequent. He'd talk about my outfit choices, saying I dressed like I was going to a funeral when I wore anything black. He'd joke about how I overthink everything, how I'm anxious about the smallest things. And he'd do it in front of people, always in front of people. Our friends, his friends, even strangers sometimes. It was like he needed an audience to really commit to the bit. I pulled him aside one night after we left a party and told him it bothered me. I said I didn't appreciate being the punchline all the time, that some of the stuff he said was actually kind of hurtful. He looked at me like I'd just told him the earth was flat. He said I was being too sensitive, that everyone jokes around like that I needed to lighten up. He said it was just banter, that it didn't mean anything. I wanted to believe him, so I tried to let it go. But that wasn't even the worst part. We're at a dinner party a few months later. It's at his friend's place, maybe 10 people total. Nice evening, good food, everyone's having a relaxed time. And then somehow the conversation shifts to stress and mental health. Someone mentions therapy, someone else talks about burnout, and my partner, without hesitation, launches into this story about a panic attack I'd had a few weeks earlier. For context, I'd had a really rough day at work. A project I'd been managing fell apart. My boss yelled at me in front of the team, and I came home completely overwhelmed. I had a full panic attack in our living room. Couldn't breathe, felt like the walls were closing in. The whole thing. My partner was there. He saw the whole thing, and at the time he was supportive. He helped me calm down, got me water, told me it was okay. I thought it was a private moment between us, something vulnerable I'd shared with him, even if unintentionally. So you can imagine how I felt when he starts telling this entire table of people about it, except he's not telling it with empathy or concern. He's performing it. He's mimicking me. He's doing this exaggerated impression of me hyperventilating, clutching my chest, saying I couldn't handle it. He's making it a comedy routine, and people are laughing. Not everyone. Some of them look uncomfortable, but a few people are actually laughing like it's the funniest thing they've heard all night. I'm sitting there frozen. I can feel my face burning. I can't even look at anyone. I just stare at my plate and wait for it to be over. When he finally finishes the story, there's this awkward beat of silence, and then someone tries to change the subject. I excuse myself to the bathroom and just sit in there for 10 minutes trying not to cry. When I come back out, the conversation has moved on, but I can't shake the feeling. The humiliation, the betrayal. This feels like a deleted scene from a sitcom. I tried to bring it up on the drive home. I told him that what he did wasn't okay, that he'd shared something deeply personal and made fun of me for it in front of people I barely knew. He got defensive immediately, told me I was overreacting, that he wasn't making fun of me, that he was just telling a funny story. I asked him how a panic attack was funny. He said I was twisting his words, that I always do this, that I take everything too seriously. We didn't talk for the rest of the night. I realized something that night. He wasn't going to stop. He didn't see anything wrong with what he was doing. In his mind, I was the problem for being hurt by it. And that's when I decided I was done asking nicely. Here's where it gets absurd. A few weeks later, he has this big work event. It's a networking thing, kind of formal. Lots of his colleagues and higher-ups are going to be there. He'd been talking about it for weeks, stressing about making a good impression, wanting to schmooze with his boss. He asked me to come with him as his +1, and I agree. I dress up, do my hair, the whole thing. I'm playing the part of the supportive partner. We get there, and it's exactly what you'd expect. Lots of small talk, people in suits, trays of appetizers being passed around. About 20 minutes in, his boss comes over. Older guy, seems nice enough, very professional. My partner introduces me, all smiles, shaking hands. And then the boss makes some polite comment about how nice it is to finally meet me, how my partner talks about me all the time. And I just smile, look the boss directly in the eye, and I say, "Nice to meet you too. Just so you know, if he starts making fun of me tonight, it's not banter. It's a pattern." The boss's smile falters. He looks confused, maybe a little uncomfortable. My partner's face goes completely red, like I can see his jaw tighten in real time. He tries to laugh it off, does this nervous chuckle and says something like, "She's joking, we joke around a lot." But I don't laugh. I just keep smiling pleasantly at his boss, who is now very clearly trying to figure out how to exit this conversation. The boss makes some excuse about needing to check in with someone and walks away. My partner doesn't say anything to me. Not right then. But I can feel the tension radiating off him for the rest of the night. His colleagues definitely noticed. A couple of them gave me weird looks. One woman actually came up to me later and quietly asked if I was okay. I told her I was fine, just setting a boundary. The car ride home was silent until we were about halfway there. Then he absolutely exploded. Started yelling about how I embarrassed him in front of his boss, how I made him look bad, how I sabotaged his career. I let him finish. And then I said very calmly, "That was exactly the point." He went quiet. I told him I'd asked him multiple times to stop humiliating me in public. I told him he ignored me every single time, told me I was too sensitive, told me I couldn't take a joke. So I decided to show him what it felt like. To have someone you trust make you look small in front of people who matter to you. I told him if he didn't like it, maybe he should consider how I felt for the past year every time he turned me into a punchline. He tried to argue, tried to say it wasn't the same, that I blindsided him, that what he did was different. I asked him how. He couldn't answer. He just stared out the windshield, breathing hard, and didn't say another word the rest of the drive. Imagine being this confidently wrong. The next day, he apologized, said he didn't realize how much it had been affecting me, that he was sorry, that he'd stop. I told him I appreciated the apology, but I wasn't sure I believed him. Because here's the thing I'd told him before, multiple times, and it only stopped being funny to him when he was the one being humiliated. That's not growth, that's just self-preservation. We're still together, technically, but things are different now. He hasn't made a joke at my expense since that night, at least not in public. But I'm watching, waiting to see if it sticks, or if this is just damage control until he thinks I've forgiven him enough to start again. I don't trust it yet. Maybe I never will. And honestly, I'm okay with that. Because I learned something too. I learned that I don't have to keep asking nicely for basic respect. Sometimes you have to make people feel exactly what they've been putting you through. And if that makes me petty or vindictive, fine. At least I'm not the punchline anymore. Public humiliation has a way of revealing who someone really is, and the next story proves that sabotage doesn't stay hidden forever. I work retail, and if you've ever worked retail, you know that shift assignments can make or break your paycheck. Weekend shifts, especially Saturdays, are where the money is. That's when foot traffic is highest, when people are actually shopping instead of just browsing, when your sales numbers can actually hit commission territory. So, when the schedule gets posted and you see yourself assigned to a prime Saturday slot, you feel like you won the lottery. That's exactly what happened to me a few weeks ago. I checked the schedule on Thursday night and saw I was slated for Saturday afternoon, the golden shift. I was pumped. I'd been working dead Tuesday mornings and random weeknight closes for months, and finally I had a chance to actually make some decent money. I even planned my whole week around it, turned down plans with friends, made sure I'd be rested and ready to bring my A game. Saturday morning I decided to come in a little early. I wanted to prep, check inventory, maybe grab a coffee and get my head in the zone before the rush started. I walked in through the back entrance, checked the bulletin board out of habit, and my stomach dropped. The schedule had been changed. I was no longer on the Saturday afternoon shift. I was on Saturday morning, the slot that starts at opening when the store is basically a ghost town. And the person who'd taken my prime shift? Dylan. Dylan is this co-worker who's always been weirdly competitive about sales numbers. He treats retail like it's some kind of gladiator arena, constantly comparing stats and making comments about who sold what. I'd mostly ignored it because, honestly, I just wanted to do my job and go home. But this was different. I found him in the break room, casually scrolling through his phone like he hadn't just stolen my shift. I asked him what happened, why the schedule changed. He looked up, shrugged, and said he forgot to tell me. Just like that. Forgot to tell me. Like swapping someone's entire shift without asking is something you just forget to mention. I asked if he got manager approval. He said yeah, of course, acting like I was being paranoid for even asking. I didn't believe him for a second, but I also didn't have proof, so I swallowed my anger, worked my dead morning shift where I helped exactly 3 customers in 4 hours, and went home fuming. But here's the thing. I'm not the type to just let something like this go. I'm patient. I document. And I wait. I started screenshotting everything. The original schedule showing me on the Saturday afternoon slot. The schedule app's edit history showing when the change was made and who made it. Timestamps, everything. I saved it all in a folder on my phone and kept my mouth shut. If Dylan wanted to play games, I was going to make sure I had receipts. The next week he did it again. But this time, it wasn't me. It was another co-worker, Sarah, who's been with the company even longer than I have. She'd been assigned to a prime Sunday shift, and suddenly she's moved to a random Wednesday night, and Dylan's taken her spot. Sarah came in confused, asked management what happened, and was told that Dylan had submitted a shift swap request that she'd supposedly approved. She never approved anything. She didn't even know about it until she showed up for a shift that was no longer hers. That's when I went to our manager. I walked into the office with my phone in hand and a very calm, very professional demeanor. I told our manager I needed to discuss something concerning about the schedule. I showed him the screenshots, the original assignments, the edit history, the timestamps proving Dylan had been changing shifts without actual approval and then lying about it afterward. I explained what happened to me, what happened to Sarah, and how Dylan had been claiming he had manager approval when he absolutely did not. Our manager's face went from confused to annoyed to legitimately angry in about 30 seconds. He pulled up the schedule system on his computer, started cross-referencing my screenshots, and his jaw actually clenched. Turns out Dylan had been exploiting a loophole in the scheduling app that lets senior employees request swaps, and he'd been approving them himself by checking a box that said, "Manager approval obtained," which the system didn't actually verify. He'd been scamming the system for weeks, maybe longer, and nobody had caught it because most people don't check the schedule obsessively or keep screenshots like I do. Our manager called Dylan into the office immediately. I wasn't there for the actual conversation, but Sarah told me later what she heard through the break room wall. Dylan tried to play dumb at first, said there must have been a glitch in the system. He suggested maybe the app was bugged, that shifts were changing on their own. Our manager apparently just stared at him and asked if he thought management was stupid. Then came the breaking point. Our manager pulled out the edit history, not just from my shifts or Sarah's, but from the entire past 2 months. Turns out Dylan had been doing this to multiple people, always swapping himself into prime shifts and moving other people into the dead zones. He'd been inflating his sales numbers by literally stealing the best opportunities from his coworkers. And every single time, he'd lied about having approval. When the receipts came out, Dylan didn't have a leg to stand on. He tried backpedaling, said he thought the checkbox meant he was allowed to approve swaps as a senior employee, that he didn't realize he needed actual manager sign-off. Our manager asked him point blank why he never told any of the coworkers he was swapping with, why he conveniently forgot to mention it every single time. Dylan didn't have an answer for that. He was written up on the spot, formal documentation, the whole thing. But honestly, the write-up was just the beginning. Our manager stripped him of all his weekend shifts for the next month, permanently reassigned him to weekday mornings and late-night closes. The shifts nobody wants. The shifts where you're lucky if you see 10 customers all day. Dylan's sales numbers tanked immediately, and his commission dropped to basically nothing. The energy in the store has been deeply awkward ever since. Dylan won't even look at me. He walks past like I'm invisible, won't respond if I say good morning, just completely shuts down any interaction. A couple of other coworkers have started giving him the cold shoulder too, especially the ones who realized they'd also been victims of his little schedule scam. Sarah straight up confronted him in the break room one day, told him what he did was shady and pathetic, and he just stared at the floor and didn't say a word. Part of me almost feels bad. Almost. But then I remember showing up to work excited about a good shift, only to find out I'd been screwed over, and the sympathy evaporates pretty quickly. Dylan made a choice. He chose to lie, to manipulate the system, and to steal opportunities from people who'd earned them fair and square. He thought he was clever. He thought he wouldn't get caught. This feels like a deleted scene from a sitcom, except the person who got caught can't laugh it off. Our manager has been a lot more vigilant about the schedule since then. He started manually approving every single swap request, no exceptions. The loophole Dylan exploited got patched within days. And honestly, the whole team seems relieved. People are getting the shifts they're actually assigned, sales numbers are evening out, and there's less of this weird competitive toxicity that Dylan had been fostering. Dylan's still working here, but barely. Rumor is he's been applying to other stores, trying to transfer or just get out entirely. I don't know if that's true, but I wouldn't be surprised. When you burn bridges that thoroughly, it's hard to just keep showing up like nothing happened. I'm back on weekend shifts now. So is Sarah. Our sales numbers are good, our schedules are stable, and nobody's secretly sabotaging anyone anymore. At least not that I know of. And if they try, well, I've still got that screenshots folder ready to go. Dylan learned the hard way that when you steal from your coworkers and lie to management, eventually someone's going to have receipts. And when those receipts show up, there's no glitch to blame. Sabotage at work is one thing, but when someone's secrets unravel an entire family's carefully constructed image, the fallout is nuclear. I need to be careful here. I borrowed his laptop because mine was updating and I needed to send an email. Simple enough, right? I opened the browser and there were already a bunch of tabs open. One of them was Twitter, logged into an account I'd never seen before. The username was nothing like his real name, just some random combination of letters and numbers. I should have closed it. I should have minded my own business, but something about it felt off, so I clicked. What I saw made my stomach drop. Years of posts, hundreds, maybe thousands of them. Racist garbage, sexist rants, hateful screeds about immigrants, about women, about anyone who didn't look or think like him. He was attacking people with disabilities. He was celebrating violence. He was saying things so vile I couldn't even process that they came from the same man who led prayer groups on Sunday mornings and gave speeches about community values at charity dinners. This is the same person who taught Sunday school, the same person who sat on the board of a homeless shelter, the same person who was constantly posting on his public Facebook about kindness and faith and helping your neighbor. I felt like I was looking at a stranger, like someone had taken my dad's face and put it on a completely different human being. I started taking screenshots. I don't even know why. At first, my hands were just moving on autopilot. I saved everything. Every disgusting post, every hateful comment, Every instance of him being the exact opposite of the person he pretended to be. Then I closed the laptop and sat there for probably 20 minutes, just staring at the wall, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do with this information. When he got home that night, I confronted him, told him I'd seen the account, watched his face go pale. He didn't try to deny it, which honestly made it worse somehow. He just immediately started begging, told me I couldn't tell anyone, that it would destroy everything, that it would ruin his reputation and embarrass the family. He said those posts didn't mean anything, that it was just him venting, that everyone says things online they don't really mean. I asked him if he really believed the things he wrote. He couldn't look at me. That was all the answer I needed. I told him he had 1 week to come clean to Mom, to tell her everything, to resign from his positions at the church and the charities, to own what he'd done. He promised he would, said he needed time to figure out how to explain it, but that he'd handle it. I wanted to believe him. Part of me still wanted this to be fixable. The week passed. He didn't say anything. He went to church like normal, attended a charity board meeting, posted on Facebook about a fundraiser he was organizing, like nothing had happened, like I hadn't just handed him an ultimatum, like he thought I was bluffing. Then came the breaking point. I sent the screenshots to the church, to the homeless shelter board, to the youth mentorship program he volunteered with. I sent them everything, every vile post, every hateful comment, every piece of evidence that showed exactly who he really was when he thought no one was watching. I included a brief message explaining that I was his child, that I discovered this by accident, and that I felt the organizations deserved to know who they were associating with. The response was immediate. Within 2 days, he'd resigned from the church board. The charities asked him to step down. The mentorship program removed his name from their website. People started talking. Word spread fast in our community, and suddenly everyone knew. The man who'd been held up as this pillar of morality, this beacon of faith and charity, was exposed as a fraud. Our family imploded. My mom was devastated when she found out. Not just about the posts, but about the fact that he'd lied to her for years, that he'd maintained this secret life, this whole other persona online, while playing devoted husband and father at home. She said she felt like she didn't even know him anymore. I think that was the part that broke her the most. Not the hate, though that was bad enough, but the deception. The realization that the man she'd been married to for 30 years had been lying to her face every single day. My siblings are split. 2 of them think I'm a hero, that someone needed to hold him accountable, and they're glad I did. They'd suspected something was off for a while, they said, but never had proof. The other 2 think I destroyed our family over nothing, that I should have kept it private, that airing this publicly was cruel and unnecessary. One of them isn't speaking to me at all. The other sends me these long text messages about forgiveness and family loyalty, trying to guilt me into feeling bad about what I did. My dad is a shell of himself now. He barely leaves the house, lost most of his friends. His business took a hit because people don't want to work with him anymore. He tried to apologize to me once, said he was sorry I had to see that, sorry for putting me in that position. Notice he didn't say he was sorry for writing those things, just sorry I found out. Oh, so we're doing that now? Mom says she understands why I did it, even though it's torn our family apart. She said she would have wanted to know, that she deserved to know who she was really married to. But I can see the pain in her eyes every time she looks at me, like part of her blames me for shattering the illusion, even if the illusion was built on lies. I keep asking myself if I did the right thing. If I should have handled it differently, maybe I should have given him more time. Maybe I should have tried harder to get him to come clean on his own. But then I think about all those posts, all that hatred he was putting out into the world while accepting awards for community service. All those people who trusted him, who looked up to him, who had no idea what he really thought about them. The thing is, he had a choice. He could have stopped at any point. He could have deleted the account, apologized, changed his behavior. Instead, he kept it going for years, built up this whole catalogue of bigotry and hate, carefully hidden behind a fake name so he could maintain his perfect public image. And when he got caught, his first instinct wasn't to feel remorse. It was to protect himself, to make sure no one else found out. To keep the lie going, I didn't destroy our family. He did. I just refused to help him cover it up. The fallout is still ongoing. We're probably going to sell the house because Mom can't afford it on her own, and she's talking about divorce. My siblings who aren't speaking to me have made it clear they're siding with Dad. That family comes first, that I betrayed him. The ones who support me say they're proud, but I can tell they're grieving too. We all lost something here. The version of our family that we thought we had. People ask me if I regret it. Honestly, I don't know. I'm angry and sad and guilty and vindicated all at once. I exposed a hypocrite, held someone accountable for their actions, stopped him from continuing to deceive people who trusted him. But I also blew up my family, made my mum cry. Lost relationships with my siblings. There's no version of this where everyone comes out okay. But I do know this. If I had stayed quiet, I would have been complicit. I would have been protecting a lie, enabling his double life, helping him continue to fool everyone around him. And I couldn't live with that. Some things are bigger than family loyalty. Some secrets are too harmful to keep. My dad built this house of cards himself. I just stopped pretending I couldn't see it was about to collapse. Family secrets have a weight to them, but when a best friend's betrayal comes with receipts, the destruction feels even more personal. Mia and I had been best friends for over 10 years. We met in high school, went through college together, survived horrible roommates and terrible jobs and all the messy chaos of your early 20s side by side. She was the person I called when something good happened, the person I texted at 2 in the morning when I couldn't sleep, the person who knew every embarrassing story, every insecurity, every dream I had. I trusted her completely. So when I started dating my ex, let's call him Jason, I was excited to introduce them. Mia seemed happy for me. She said Jason seemed great, that we were cute together, all the things a good friend says when you're in that honeymoon phase and can't shut up about your new relationship. She'd hang out with us sometimes, grab dinner or come to movie nights. It felt natural, easy, like my best friend and my boyfriend were getting along, which is exactly what you want. The relationship with Jason lasted about a year and a half. It wasn't a bad breakup, just one of those things where we realized we weren't compatible long term. Different life goals, different communication styles, the usual stuff. It hurt, don't get me wrong. I was sad and disappointed and spent a lot of nights crying on my couch wondering what I could have done differently. And through all of it, Mia was there. She brought me ice cream, let me vent for hours, told me I deserved better. She was the friend I needed, or so I thought. About a month after the breakup, I got a message from another friend in our circle, Lauren. She said she needed to talk to me about something and that I should probably sit down first. My stomach dropped immediately because nobody ever says that before delivering good news. She sent me a link to a shared photo album. I opened it. Screenshots, dozens of them, text messages between Mia and Jason. I started scrolling, and with every swipe, my chest got tighter. These weren't recent messages. They went back months, like all the way back to when Jason and I were still together. And they weren't just casual, friendly conversation. Mia was flirting with him, complimenting him, sending late-night messages, using way too many emojis for someone who was supposedly just being supportive of her best friend's relationship. But that wasn't even the worst part. She was talking about me, calling me clingy, saying I was dramatic and exhausting, telling Jason that I overreacted to everything, that I was too emotional, that she didn't know how he dealt with it, and in the same breath, she'd position herself as the opposite. The chill girl, the understanding one, the one who didn't make things complicated. She was actively trying to make me look bad to my own boyfriend, while pretending to be my supportive best friend. I sat there staring at my phone, reading message after message, feeling like the floor had disappeared beneath me. This was the person I'd trusted with everything, the person I'd cried to about this exact relationship, and the whole time she'd been undermining me behind my back, playing some kind of twisted game where she got to be both my confidant and my competition. I didn't sleep that night. I just kept reading the screenshots over and over, trying to make sense of it, trying to find some explanation that didn't involve my best friend of 10 years being a completely different person than I thought she was. I couldn't find one. The next day I called her, kept my voice calm, asked if we could meet up to talk. She said sure, sounded cheerful, like nothing was wrong. We met at a coffee shop and I didn't waste time. I pulled up the screenshots on my phone and slid it across the table, asked her to explain. Her face went pale, then red. Then she started talking fast, stumbling over her words. She said they were just friends. that Jason had reached out to her because he was stressed about our relationship and needed advice, that the messages looked bad out of context, but it wasn't what I thought. She said I was overreacting, that I was seeing something that wasn't there. I asked her to explain the part where she called me clingy and dramatic. She said she was just venting, that everyone vents about their friends sometimes, that it didn't mean anything. I asked her to explain the flirting. She said she was just being nice, that I was reading too much into it. Every excuse she gave just made it worse. She wasn't even really denying it. She was just minimizing, deflecting, trying to make me feel like I was crazy for being hurt. I told her we were done, got up and left while she was still mid-sentence trying to justify herself. Here's where it gets absurd. I went home and I did something I'm not sure I'm proud of, but I also don't regret. I opened our main friend group chat, the one with about 15 people in it, all mutual friends who'd known both of us for years, and I posted the screenshots, all of them, with one caption, "Just friends, huh?" Then I muted the chat and put my phone face down on the table. When I finally checked it an hour later, there were over 100 messages. The group had exploded. People were shocked, angry, confused. A few people were defending me at first, saying maybe there was an explanation, but then they actually read the messages, and the defense stopped pretty quickly, because there's no context that makes bad-mouthing your best friend to her boyfriend while flirting with him look good. Mia joined the chat about 2 hours after I posted. She tried to backtrack immediately, said the screenshots were taken out of context, that I was twisting things, that this was between us and I had no right to air it publicly. She said I was being vindictive and cruel, that I was trying to turn everyone against her. But here's the thing. Everyone could read the messages themselves. They didn't need me to twist anything. The words were right there in black and white. Her calling me exhausting. Her telling Jason she didn't understand what he saw in me. Her making herself out to be the better option. A few people called her out directly in the chat, asked her how she could do that to someone she claimed was her best friend, asked her what she expected to happen. She didn't have good answers. She kept trying to deflect to make it about me violating her privacy or being dramatic, but nobody was buying it. The chat eventually died down, but the damage was done. Mia has been completely iced out of the group. Nobody invites her to things anymore. Nobody responds to her messages. She's effectively been exiled, and honestly, I think most people feel like she deserved it. There's something almost poetic about watching someone's carefully constructed image just collapse in real time. I've heard through the grapevine that she's been trying to start a counter-narrative, telling people that I was a terrible friend and she was just being honest with Jason about my flaws. But the screenshots don't lie, and most people in our circle have known me long enough to know that her version doesn't hold up. Jason, for what it's worth, reached out to apologize, said he didn't realize Mia was being that two-faced, that he thought they were just commiserating about relationship stuff. I didn't respond. I don't need his apology. He's not the one who spent a decade building trust with me just to shatter it. The betrayal still stings. There are moments where I'll remember some inside joke we had, or some trip we took together, and I'll feel this wave of sadness, not for Mia as she is now, but for the version of her I thought existed. The friend I thought I had. That person is gone, if she ever really existed at all. But I don't regret exposing her. Some people have said I should have handled it privately, that posting the screenshots was too harsh, but Mia didn't handle things privately. She talked about me behind my back for months, actively worked to undermine my relationship, and then lied to my face about it when confronted. She made her choices. I just made sure people knew what those choices were. I've started rebuilding my social circle with people I actually trust. Lauren, the friend who sent me the screenshots in the first place, has become much closer. She didn't have to tell me. She could have stayed out of it, but she chose to be honest, even when it was uncomfortable. That's the kind of friend I want in my life. Mia texted me a few weeks ago. A long message about how she's sorry, how she made mistakes, how she hopes we can eventually talk and work things out. I read it, didn't respond, because some betrayals don't get fixed with an apology. Some people show you who they really are, and the only healthy response is to believe them and walk away. 10 years of friendship, gone, and the wildest part is, I don't miss her. I miss the idea of her. But the real Mia, the one who smiled to my face while trashing me behind my back, I'm better off without her. Betrayal stings, but when it comes from someone in a position of power over you, the stakes get even higher. I work in marketing, and a few months ago we launched what was supposed to be a major campaign for one of our biggest clients. We're talking serious budget, high visibility, the kind of project that can make or break your reputation in the company. I was the lead on it, reporting directly to my manager Kevin, who'd been with the company for years and had this reputation as a guy who knew what he was doing. The campaign flopped, like spectacularly. The engagement numbers were way below projections, the client was unhappy, and upper management was asking questions. I knew it wasn't great, but I also knew exactly why it didn't work. The strategy Kevin had pushed, the one he'd insisted we go with despite my concerns, just didn't resonate with the target audience. I'd flagged this in multiple meetings. I had the emails to prove it. But when things went south, I figured we'd do what professionals do. Analyze what went wrong, learn from it, move forward. Kevin had other plans. He called an emergency meeting with upper management. I walked in thinking we were going to do a post-mortem, talk through the data, figure out next steps. Instead, Kevin spent 45 minutes systematically throwing me under the bus. He told the executives that I'd ignored his direction and gone rogue with the creative, that I'd made decisions without his approval, that I'd missed critical deadlines and failed to communicate with the team. He painted this picture of me as some kind of loose cannon who'd tanked the whole project through incompetence and arrogance. I sat there completely stunned. Every single thing he said was a lie. The creative direction he was now claiming to have opposed, that was his idea. He'd literally presented it to the client himself. The deadlines he said I missed, I hit every single one, often early. The lack of communication, I'd been sending him daily updates and he'd responded to most of them with approval. I didn't say anything during the meeting. I just sat there taking notes while he rewrote history in real time. The executives were nodding along, asking him pointed questions about my performance, discussing whether I should even remain on the account. I could feel my career circling the drain, and I couldn't get a word in because Kevin had orchestrated the whole thing to make sure his version was the only one they heard first. When the meeting ended, I walked back to my desk feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. A couple of co-workers asked if I was okay. I told them I was fine and got to work, but that wasn't even the worst part. Over the next 2 days, I pulled everything. Every email I'd ever sent Kevin about the campaign, every Slack message, every shared document with his comments and approvals, every meeting invite with notes attached. I created a timeline, a literal day-by-day breakdown of the entire project from start to finish. For every claim Kevin had made in that meeting, I had receipts showing the opposite. He said I ignored his direction on creative. Here's the email thread where he explicitly approved the concepts and told me to move forward. He said I missed deadlines. Here are the timestamps showing I submitted deliverables early, with his responses thanking me for the quick turnaround. He said I made decisions without his sign-off. Here are 15 different Slack conversations where I asked for his input, and he gave it. I organized everything into a clear professional document. No emotion, no accusations, just facts. Email screenshots, message logs, file histories. I included dates, times, and direct quotes. Then I sent it to HR with a formal complaint about being falsely blamed for failures that resulted from approved strategies, and I CC'd the executive team that had been in that meeting. I'm not going to lie, my finger hovered over the send button for a solid minute. This was nuclear. This was career-ending, and not necessarily for me. But I pressed send anyway, because I wasn't about to let someone destroy my reputation to save their own. The response was fast. Within hours, HR replied saying they were reviewing the materials and would be in touch. By the next day, I got called into a meeting with HR and one of the executives who'd been in Kevin's ambush session. They asked me to walk them through the timeline. I did, calmly and professionally, referencing the documentation I'd provided. They asked clarifying questions. I answered every single one with evidence. 2 days later, Kevin was called into a closed-door meeting with HR and senior leadership. I wasn't there, obviously, but word travels fast in an office. He was in that room for over 2 hours. When he came out, he looked like he'd aged 5 years. Here's where it gets absurd. Kevin was reassigned to a different department. No direct reports, no client-facing work. Basically a lateral move in title, but a massive demotion in responsibility. They stripped him of his team, his projects, everything. And then I got a formal apology. Not from Kevin, he never said a word to me, but from the executive team. They acknowledged that the meeting had been inappropriate, that the blame had been misplaced, and that they appreciated my professionalism, in handling the situation. The energy in the office shifted overnight. People knew something had happened, and it didn't take long for the story to spread. Kevin had tried to scapegoat me, and instead he'd torpedoed himself. Some people thought it was brutal. Most people thought it was deserved. Kevin avoids me completely now. We pass in the hallway and he looks at the floor. We're in the same meeting sometimes and he won't make eye contact. He doesn't speak unless spoken to, and when he does, his voice is quiet and careful. The guy who used to dominate every conversation, who loved hearing himself talk, is now practically invisible. Part of me feels bad, not for him exactly, but for the fact that it came to this. I didn't want to blow up someone's career. I just wanted to protect my own. But Kevin made a choice. He chose to lie to save himself. He chose to sacrifice me instead of taking responsibility for a failed strategy that was largely his doing. And he did it in the most public, humiliating way possible. If he'd been honest, if he'd stood up in that meeting and said we made some strategic missteps as a team and here's what we learned, none of this would have happened. But he didn't. He decided I was expendable, and when you make that calculation about someone, you better be sure they don't have receipts. The executives learned something too. They realized they'd almost made a massive mistake based on one person's narrative. Now they ask more questions. They want documentation. They don't just take someone's word for it when a project goes sideways. In a weird way, Kevin's attempted scapegoating made the whole department more accountable. I'm still on the account. The client relationship is being rebuilt with a new strategy, one that's actually data-driven this time. My reputation took a hit initially, but once the truth came out, people's perception shifted. I'm the person who stayed calm under fire and let the facts speak for themselves. That's not a bad reputation to have. Kevin is still at the company technically, but everyone knows what happened. Everyone knows he tried to throw someone under the bus, and it backfired spectacularly. That's not the kind of thing you come back from easily. His credibility is gone. His authority is gone. He's basically just serving out time until he finds something else, or the company finds a reason to let him go. The whole experience taught me something valuable. Document everything, not because you're paranoid, but because people will rewrite history to protect themselves, and you need to be able to prove what actually happened. Kevin thought he could control the narrative because he got to the executives first. He didn't count on me having a paper trail that contradicted every word he said. The best revenge isn't yelling or confrontation. It's cold, hard evidence that speaks louder than any lie ever could. If you've made it this far into the chaos, you're as addicted to Reddit drama as I am. Make sure to subscribe and tell me where you're watching from in the comments. I want to know who else is losing sleep over these stories. Alright, let's get back to it because the next one involves a cousin, a ruined reputation, and a secret that changed everything. My cousin Vanessa and I grew up in the same town, went to the same schools, attended the same family gatherings. On paper, we should have been close, but Vanessa's always had this thing where she needs to be the best, the most successful, the most praised, and if she wasn't, she'd find a way to tear down whoever was. In high school, I worked my ass off. I studied constantly, joined extracurriculars, did volunteer work, the whole college application grind. I got into a really good university, one I'd been dreaming about for years. I was proud of myself. My parents were proud. It felt like all that hard work had actually paid off. Then Vanessa started a rumor. She told people I'd cheated on the entrance exam, that the only reason I got in was because I'd somehow scammed the system. She said it to a few family members at first, framing it as concern, like she was worried about me getting caught. But the story spread. Aunts and uncles started asking my parents about it. Cousins gave me weird looks at family events. Even my grandmother pulled me aside once and asked if there was any truth to it. I tried defending myself. I showed people my grades, my test scores, everything that proved I'd earned my spot. But Vanessa was the golden child. She was charming, well-liked, always knew how to play the room. When it came down to her word versus mine, people believed her. Or at least, they believed her enough to doubt me. The rumor never fully went away. For years, there was this cloud hanging over my achievement. This whisper that maybe I hadn't really earned it. I kept my head down, went to college, graduated, built a career. I saw Vanessa at family gatherings and kept things civil, even though every time I looked at her, I remembered what she'd done. The reputation she destroyed because she couldn't handle someone else succeeding. Fast forward to last Thanksgiving. The whole extended family is gathered at my aunt's house, probably 30 people crammed into one dining room. Vanessa shows up with her fiancé and announces their engagement. Everyone loses their minds with excitement. She's glowing, showing off her ring, talking about wedding plans. And then she starts this speech. She talks about how important family is, how she's always valued honesty and integrity, how she can't wait to start this new chapter with someone who shares her values. She's painting herself as this perfect, wholesome bride to be, this paragon of virtue. And I'm sitting there, listening to her go on, and something inside me just snaps. I'd kept quiet for years. I'd let her get away with ruining my reputation because I didn't want to cause drama, didn't want to be the person who made family gatherings uncomfortable. But watching her stand there and preach about morality while everyone applauded, I was done. When she finished her speech and everyone started clinking glasses, I spoke up, loud enough for the whole table to hear. I said it was interesting that she was so concerned about honesty and integrity now, considering she'd cheated her way through college using a paid essay service. The table went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Vanessa's face went white, then red. She immediately started denying it, laughing it off like I was making a joke in poor taste. She said I was being ridiculous, that I was jealous of her engagement, that I was trying to ruin her moment. But that wasn't even the worst part. I pulled out my phone. Because here's the thing, Vanessa had been sloppy. Years ago, when she was in college and panicking about deadlines, she'd sent me emails asking for help. Not help with her essays, help covering her tracks. She wanted to know if I thought her professors would notice if she bought papers online. She asked me to proofread something she'd purchased to make sure it sounded like her writing. She even sent me links to the services she was using, asking which ones I thought were safest. I'd saved everything. Not because I was planning some long revenge plot, but because even back then, part of me knew that someday her lies might come back around. And now, sitting at that Thanksgiving table with her acting like some moral authority, I forwarded those emails to the family group chat. People started pulling out their phones. I watched their faces change as they read. The confusion, the shock, the realization that Vanessa's perfect image was built on the same kind of dishonesty she'd accused me of years ago, except in her case, it was actually true. Vanessa tried to backtrack, said the emails were old, that she'd been young and stupid, that she'd changed. She said I was being cruel for bringing it up now, that I was trying to sabotage her happiness. Her fiancé looked completely blindsided, like he was realizing he didn't actually know the person he was about to marry. My aunt tried to smooth things over, suggested we all just enjoy dinner and talk about this later. But the damage was done. The rest of the evening was incredibly tense. People kept glancing at Vanessa, then at me, trying to figure out how to navigate this new information. Vanessa left early, practically dragging her fiancé out the door. The family was absolutely stunned, because Vanessa had spent years building this reputation as the responsible one, the high achiever, the person who did everything right. And in one dinner, that entire image shattered. The real plot twist is watching someone's carefully crafted persona disintegrate the second the truth shows up with receipts. The aftermath has been messy. Some family members think I went too far, that Thanksgiving dinner wasn't the time or place for that kind of confrontation. Others have reached out privately to say they always suspected something was off about Vanessa's story, that they're glad the truth finally came out. A few people have apologized to me for believing her rumors all those years ago. Vanessa hasn't spoken to me since. I've heard through the family grapevine that her fiancé called off the engagement. Apparently, the cheating revelation was just the tip of the iceberg, and once he started questioning other things about their relationship, the whole foundation fell apart. Part of me feels bad about that, but mostly I don't, because here's what nobody seems to want to acknowledge. Vanessa made a choice when we were younger. She chose to lie about me, to damage my reputation, to make people doubt my accomplishments. She did that knowing it would hurt me, knowing it was false, and she did it anyway because it benefited her. And then she had the audacity to stand up at a family gathering and lecture everyone about integrity. I didn't ruin Vanessa's reputation. I just stopped protecting her from the consequences of her own actions. There's a difference. My parents have mixed feelings. They understand why I did it, but they wish I'd found a different way. My mum said I could have pulled Vanessa aside privately instead of making it public. But Vanessa didn't give me that courtesy years ago. She spread her lies as widely as possible, made sure everyone in the family heard them. I just returned the favor with something that happened to be true. I don't regret it. For years, I let her get away with what she did because I didn't want to rock the boat. I wanted to be the bigger person, to let it go, to move on. But being the bigger person just meant she never faced consequences. It meant she got to keep her perfect reputation while mine stayed tarnished. And I'm tired of letting people get away with hurting me just because calling them out would be uncomfortable. Vanessa built her image on lies. She tore down other people to make herself look better. And when that finally caught up with her, she tried to play the victim. But the emails don't lie. The evidence doesn't lie. And for once, the truth actually mattered more than her ability to charm her way out of consequences. I don't know if we'll ever speak again. Honestly, I'm okay with that. Some relationships aren't worth saving, especially when they were never really genuine to begin with. Vanessa was never actually my family in any meaningful sense. She was just someone I happened to be related to, who spent years making my life harder for her own benefit. So yeah, my cousin ruined my reputation, and years later I told everyone what she'd been hiding. Her image shattered, her engagement fell apart, and she hasn't spoken to me since. And you know what? I'm sleeping just fine at night. Reputations can be built on lies, and when boundaries get dismissed long enough, sometimes the only option left is a nuclear exit. I'd been with Alex for 3 years. In the beginning, things were great. We had that honeymoon phase energy where everything felt easy and natural. But early on, I made something very clear. I'm an introvert. I need alone time to recharge. And when I say I need space, it's not personal. It's just how I function. I also told Alex that I value privacy, that I don't check other people's phones, and I don't want mine checked. It's a trust thing for me. A boundary that matters. Alex said they understood, said it made total sense, that everyone needs their own space, that they respected my need for privacy. For a while it seemed like we were on the same page, but over time things started to shift. Small things at first. Alex would make jokes about reading my messages when my phone was sitting on the table. I'd laugh it off, but it made me uncomfortable. Then Alex started showing up unannounced during my alone time. I'd tell them I needed an evening to myself, and they'd text an hour later saying they were outside my apartment with food, acting like it was this sweet romantic gesture. When I'd gently point out that I'd asked for space, they'd get defensive, say they were just trying to be thoughtful, that they missed me, that I was being cold. The guilt trips became a pattern. Every time I enforced a boundary, Alex would frame it like I was rejecting them, like wanting a few hours to decompress meant I didn't care about the relationship. I started second-guessing myself, wondering if I was being unreasonable. Maybe I was asking for too much. Maybe this is just what compromise looked like. But it kept getting worse. Alex started checking my phone when I was in the shower or asleep. I'd wake up and see that messages had been read, apps had been opened. When I confronted them about it, they'd say they were just curious, that they weren't doing anything wrong, that if I had nothing to hide, it shouldn't matter. I tried explaining that it wasn't about hiding anything. It was about trust and respect. They'd apologize, promise not to do it again, and then do it again a week later. I communicated this repeatedly. I sat them down, told them how serious I was, explained that these boundaries weren't negotiable for me. Each time, Alex would apologize. They'd say they understood, that they'd do better, that they didn't realize how much it was affecting me. And for a few days, things would improve. Then we'd slide right back into the same patterns. I started feeling suffocated. I couldn't relax in my own space because I was always waiting for Alex to show up uninvited. I couldn't leave my phone unattended without worrying it would be searched. My alone time, the thing I needed to stay mentally healthy, became this source of conflict and stress. I felt like I was constantly defending my right to exist as an individual within the relationship. And here's where it gets absurd. About 6 months before the end, I tried one more time. I wrote out my boundaries clearly, not in anger, but just as a list. Alone time twice a week minimum, no unannounced visits, no going through my phone. I asked Alex to read it and tell me if they could respect those things. They read it, nodded, said of course that they wanted me to feel comfortable and safe. I actually felt hopeful, like maybe we'd finally turned a corner. 2 days later, Alex showed up at my apartment unannounced while I was having my designated alone time, rang the doorbell holding takeout and flowers. When I opened the door and reminded them that I'd specifically asked for this evening to myself, they looked hurt, said they were trying to do something nice, that I was being ungrateful, that they didn't understand why I was pushing them away. That's when I knew it was over, because it wasn't about understanding. Alex understood perfectly well what I needed. They just didn't care. Or more accurately, they cared more about what they wanted than about respecting what I'd asked for. They'd rather guilt me into abandoning my boundaries than actually honor them. I ended it the next week, told Alex clearly that I couldn't be in a relationship where my boundaries were treated as suggestions, that I'd communicated what I needed over and over, and nothing had changed. Alex cried, said they'd do better this time, that they'd really listen. But I was done. I'd heard that promise too many times, and I didn't believe it anymore. The breakup was messy. Alex tried to stay friends, kept texting me asking to talk things through. I stayed firm, said I needed space, that I needed to move on. They didn't take it well. Then came the breaking point. A few days after the breakup, I posted something on social media. Nothing dramatic, just honest. I said I'd left a relationship because my boundaries weren't respected, and I refused to shrink myself anymore to make someone else comfortable. I said that asking for space and privacy isn't selfish, it's necessary, and that I deserved a partner who understood that. Alex's friends absolutely lost it. My DMs flooded with messages calling me dramatic, saying I was airing private business, that I was making Alex look bad over nothing. One of them said I was clearly the problem if I needed that much alone time, that relationships require sacrifice. Another said checking your partner's phone is normal, and I was being paranoid. I didn't respond to any of them, but what happened next was unexpected. My own friends reached out with support, which I expected. But then I started getting messages from people I didn't know well, acquaintances, mutual connections, and then 3 of Alex's exes, all of them saying the same thing, that they'd experienced the exact same pattern, the boundary violations, the guilt trips, the apologies that never led to change. One of them said she'd broken up with Alex for the exact same reasons and had been made to feel crazy for it. It wasn't just me. This was how Alex operated in relationships. They found partners, agreed to their boundaries, then slowly eroded them while playing the victim whenever they got called out. And when the relationship ended, they'd rewrite history to make themselves look like the one who'd been wronged. Alex tried to paint me as the villain, posted vague things about being blindsided, about giving everything to someone who threw it away. Their friends rallied around them, reinforced the narrative that I was cold and difficult. But the pattern was undeniable. Too many people had experienced the same thing. Too many of us had the same story. The thing about patterns is they're really hard to hide once enough people start comparing notes. I blocked Alex on everything. Blocked most of their friends too, the ones who'd come at me in the DMs. I didn't need that energy in my life. The people who mattered, the ones who actually knew me, understood why I left. And honestly, that was enough. The relief I felt after ending things was overwhelming. I didn't realize how much stress I'd been carrying until it was gone. I could be in my apartment without waiting for an unexpected knock on the door. I could leave my phone on the table without anxiety. I could plan alone time without having to defend it or feel guilty about it. I'm still unpacking a lot of what happened in that relationship. The way my boundaries got dismissed so consistently that I started questioning if they were even valid. The way I was made to feel selfish for needing basic respect and space. It's going to take time to fully process all of it. But I know I made the right call, because I'm not willing to be in a relationship where my needs are treated as inconveniences, where my clearly stated boundaries are crossed, and then I'm guilted for being upset about it. I deserve better than that. Everyone does. Alex's friends can call me dramatic all they want. The exes who reached out know the truth. My friends know the truth. And most importantly, I know the truth. I didn't end things over nothing. I ended them because after 3 years of trying, of communicating, of giving chance after chance, nothing changed. And I finally chose myself. I'm finally free. And that's not something I'm willing to give up ever again. When one door closes, another opens, but sometimes you have to slam that door so hard that HR hears it from 3 floors up. My coworker Rachel had this thing where she loved making me the butt of jokes. It started small, little comments here and there that I could almost convince myself weren't that big a deal. But over time, it escalated into something I couldn't ignore anymore. In team meetings, she'd mock my ideas. I'd suggest something and she'd immediately jump in with some sarcastic comment about how that's adorable or how we should definitely try the approach that won't work. She'd roll her eyes when I spoke, loud enough that other people would notice. A few co-workers started doing it too, like she'd given them permission to treat me as the office punching bag. The worst part was during presentations. I was giving an update on a project I'd been leading, and halfway through, Rachel started doing an impression of me, exaggerating my hand gestures, mimicking my voice in this mocking tone. A few people laughed, most looked uncomfortable. I just stood there trying to finish my presentation while my face burned with embarrassment. I tried brushing it off, told myself she was just insecure, that her behavior said more about her than it did about me. I didn't want to be the person who couldn't take a joke or made things awkward by complaining. But it was humiliating. Every meeting became this anxiety-inducing event where I had to brace myself for whatever comment she'd make. I mentioned it to my manager once, kept it vague, said I felt like there was some tension on the team and maybe we could benefit from a discussion about communication styles. My manager said they'd keep an eye on it but didn't seem particularly concerned. Rachel was charming when she wanted to be. She knew how to play it off as harmless teasing, as banter. From the outside, maybe it looked like we just had different personalities, but then she took it too far. One morning I woke up to a dozen messages from coworkers. Confused, I opened my email and saw that Rachel had sent a message to the entire department. The subject line was something work-related, but the content was pure venom. She'd written this whole paragraph mocking my recent project presentation, calling my ideas juvenile, and saying I clearly didn't understand the basics of our work. Then she made comments about my appearance, said I dressed like I was trying too hard, that I should focus less on looking professional and more on actually being competent. At the bottom of the email, she'd added a line. Oops, didn't mean to send this to everyone, sorry for the spam. She was pretending it was accidental. Like she'd meant to send this to a friend, or maybe a private group chat, and whoops, she'd accidentally hit reply all. But I didn't buy it for a second. The email was too perfectly crafted, too specific. This was intentional. She wanted to humiliate me publicly and then hide behind plausible deniability. I sat there staring at my screen, reading and rereading the email. I felt sick, angry, humiliated all over again. But this time, I had proof. This wasn't something that happened in a meeting where it was her word against mine. This was documented, sent to dozens of people, undeniable. I forwarded the email directly to HR. Didn't add much commentary, just a clear subject line. Hostile work environment documentation. Then I included a brief summary of the pattern of behavior leading up to this, the mocking in meetings, the impression during my presentation, the constant undermining. I kept it factual and professional, no emotion, just laying out what had been happening. HR responded within an hour saying they were taking this seriously and would be launching an investigation. They asked me to come in for a meeting the next day to discuss everything in detail. And here's where it gets absurd. During the investigation, HR reached out to other employees to get a sense of the team dynamic. Turns out I wasn't the only one. 3 other people came forward with similar complaints about Rachel. She'd been targeting multiple co-workers, always in slightly different ways, but the pattern was the same: mocking, undermining, creating a hostile environment while maintaining this veneer of it all being jokes or accidents. One guy said she'd been making comments about his accent for months, imitating the way he pronounced certain words and laughing about it in meetings. Another woman said Rachel had spread rumors about her personal life, told people she was difficult to work with when she'd never even had a conflict with Rachel directly. The more HR dug, the more they found. Rachel tried to defend herself, said she was just joking around, that everyone was being too sensitive, that this was all being blown out of proportion. But when you have 4 separate people with detailed accounts of the same behavior, it's hard to claim everyone's misinterpreting your intentions. HR put her on a performance improvement plan, basically a formal warning that if her behavior didn't change immediately, she'd be fired. They also moved her to a different team, said it was to give everyone a fresh start, but really it was to separate her from the people she'd been targeting. The day after the decision came down, Rachel tried to apologize to me, caught me in the break room and said she was sorry, that she didn't realize how her jokes were coming across, that she never meant to hurt anyone. I just looked at her and said thanks for the apology, then walked away. Because it felt hollow. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry she got caught and faced consequences. The energy in the department shifted almost immediately. Meetings became productive again instead of this weird performance where everyone waited to see who Rachel would target. People started actually listening when I spoke, instead of bracing for the inevitable mocking comment. I could present ideas without feeling like I had to defend myself from attacks disguised as humor. It's wild how one person's behavior can poison an entire workplace, and how quickly things improve once that toxicity is removed. A few coworkers thanked me privately for going to HR, said they'd wanted to report Rachel too, but were afraid of retaliation or being labeled as difficult. One of them said she felt like she could finally breathe again, that she'd been dreading coming to work because of Rachel's comments. Hearing that made me realize how important it was that I documented everything and pushed back. Rachel is still with the company technically, but barely. She keeps her head down now, doesn't engage much in meetings. I've heard she's been applying to other jobs, trying to get out before she gets fired. Part of me wonders if she learned anything from this, if she'll treat her next co-workers better, but honestly, I doubt it. People like Rachel don't usually change. They just find new environments where they haven't burned bridges yet. The whole experience taught me something valuable. Silence doesn't protect you. Trying to be the bigger person and ignore harassment just lets it continue. I spent months telling myself it wasn't that bad, that I should just deal with it, that reporting her would make me look weak or overly sensitive. But the truth is, standing up for myself was the strongest thing I could have done. I finally feel respected at work. I can walk into meetings without that knot of anxiety in my stomach. I can share ideas without waiting for someone to tear them down for a laugh. And when I see Rachel in the hallway, I don't feel intimidated anymore. I feel vindicated. She tried to humiliate me one too many times, and it backfired spectacularly. The email she thought would be her biggest joke at my expense ended up being the documentation that got her removed from the team. There's a certain poetic justice in that. The department is quieter now, more collaborative. People actually support each other instead of watching someone get torn down for entertainment. And I get to show up every day knowing that I don't have to tolerate disrespect just to keep the peace. Some battles are fought in conference rooms, others in group chats, and the next one involved a single deleted message that brought an entire family to its knees. Our family group chat has always been a mess. You know the type. 50 people arguing about politics, sharing minion memes, sending happy birthday messages 3 weeks late. Most of the time, I just muted it and checked in once a week to make sure nobody had died. It was chaotic, but mostly harmless. Until it wasn't. A few months ago, my mum got really sick. Nothing life-threatening, but she needed help getting to doctor's appointments, picking up prescriptions, that kind of thing. I'd been spending a lot of time at her place, making sure she was okay, basically putting my own life on pause to take care of her. It was exhausting, but she's my mum. Of course I was going to be there. During this time, my cousin was planning her engagement party, big fancy thing at a rented venue, the whole family invited. I RSVP'd yes because I wanted to be supportive, even though I was stretched pretty thin. The day of the party, my mum had a bad morning. She was dizzy, felt nauseous, and I didn't feel comfortable leaving her alone. I texted my cousin explaining the situation, said I'd be there but might be a little late. She said no problem. Family comes first. She totally understood. I showed up about 40 minutes after the official start time. The party was still in full swing. People were mingling. Nobody had even sat down for dinner yet. I found my cousin, apologized again for being late, gave her a hug and her gift. She was genuinely sweet about it, said she was just glad I made it, and asked how my mom was doing. I thought that was the end of it. 2 days later, I opened the family group chat and saw I had 67 unread messages. Never a good sign. I started scrolling back to see what I'd missed, and my stomach dropped. My aunt, my cousin's mom, had posted this long message absolutely tearing me apart. She said I'd ruined the engagement party by showing up late and making everything about myself. She said I was disrespectful and selfish, that I clearly didn't care about family, that my cousin had been devastated by my absence during the important photos. She went on for paragraphs about how I always do this, always make excuses, always put myself first. Every single word was a lie. I wasn't absent, I was 40 minutes late to a 4-hour party. My cousin hadn't been devastated, She'd literally hugged me and thanked me for coming. And the reason I was late wasn't some selfish excuse. It was because I was taking care of my sick mother, something my aunt knew because I'd mentioned it in the family chat before. I was sitting there reading this message, hands shaking, trying to figure out how to respond. And then I watched it disappear. The message was deleted, just gone, like it had never existed. I refreshed the chat. Nothing. Checked my notifications. The preview was there, but the message itself had vanished. My aunt had posted this cruel, lying screed, attacking me in front of the entire family, and then she'd deleted it. Probably realized it made her look bad, or maybe someone told her to take it down. Either way, she was trying to pretend it never happened. But I'd screenshot it. The second I started reading and realized how bad it was, I'd taken screenshots of the whole thing. Every paragraph. I saved them to a folder and didn't say anything. Just watched to see what would happen next. For a few days, nothing. The group chat went back to normal. Memes, birthday wishes, someone's recipe for potato salad. My aunt posted a few times like everything was fine. Then, about a week later, someone brought up the engagement party. Said what a lovely time they'd had, how beautiful everything was, and my aunt responded. Said she was so glad everyone had enjoyed it, that it meant the world to her daughter, and that she just wished everyone could have been there on time to support her. Just that little dig, that passive-aggressive implication that someone, meaning me, had let the family down. She was rewriting what happened, playing the victim, making herself look like the reasonable one who'd been wronged. That's when I reposted the screenshots. I didn't add much commentary, just posted the images of her deleted message with a simple caption. Let's not rewrite history. The chat absolutely exploded. Most people hadn't seen the original message. It had been deleted so fast that only a handful of family members had caught it before it disappeared. So for the majority of the chat, this was the first time they were seeing what my aunt had actually said. And they were horrified. People started asking what happened, why she'd posted that, whether it was real. My aunt immediately went on the defensive. She said I'd edited the screenshots, that I was making things up, that she would never say those things. She tried to claim I was attacking her, that I was the one causing drama. But that wasn't even the worst part. Several people spoke up and said they'd seen the message before it was deleted. They confirmed it was real, word for word, what my aunt had written. One of my cousins said she'd actually responded to it before the deletion, trying to defend me, and her reply had disappeared along with the original post. The receipts were undeniable. My aunt kept trying to backtrack, said she'd been emotional, that she didn't mean it the way it sounded, that family should handle things privately instead of airing them in the group chat. The irony of that statement coming from the person who'd publicly attacked me in the first place was not lost on anyone. The chat turned into an absolute war zone, people taking sides, arguing about whether I should have posted the screenshots or handled it privately, debating whether my aunt had the right to be upset about me being late in the first place. My uncle jumped in defending his wife, saying I was being vindictive. My mum, who rarely participates in the chat, posted a message explaining that I'd been late because I was helping her and that she was disappointed in how I was being treated. Things went from bad to unhinged. Arguments that had nothing to do with the original incident started surfacing. Old grudges, past family drama, resentments that had been simmering for years. It was like my aunt's deleted message had been the dam holding everything back. And once it broke, the flood couldn't be stopped. People were bringing up things from a decade ago, arguments from previous holidays, perceived slights that had never been addressed. Within 2 days, the group chat disbanded. Someone, I'm not even sure who, deleted the whole thing, and our family essentially split into factions. There's a smaller chat now with the people who supported me. My aunt started her own with the people who think I was wrong to post the screenshots, and there are family members who just opted out entirely, sick of the whole mess. I've gotten mixed reactions from extended family. Some people have reached out privately to say they're glad I stood up for myself, that my aunt had been pulling stuff like this for years, and it was time someone called her out. Others have said I went too far, that I should have just let it go, that posting the screenshots publicly was cruel and unnecessary. Here's my take. My aunt wrote those things. She chose to post them in a family group chat where everyone could see. The only reason it became an issue is because she tried to delete the evidence and pretend it never happened. If she'd owned what she said, or apologized, or even just left it up and dealt with the consequences, none of this would have escalated. But she wanted to have it both ways. She wanted to attack me publicly and then erase the proof so she could play innocent. And I wasn't going to let her rewrite history to make herself the victim. People can say I should have been the bigger person, that I should have handled it privately, but she didn't handle it privately. She made it public. I just made sure the public record was accurate. The family chat is gone, and honestly, I don't miss it. The constant notifications, the drama, the passive-aggressive comments disguised as concern. I'm still close with the family members who matter, the ones who actually showed up for me during all this. The rest can stay in whatever faction they've chosen. I'm done protecting people who weaponize their words and then hide behind deletion buttons. My aunt hasn't spoken to me since. I'm completely fine with that. Some bridges are better burned. Deleted messages can haunt you, but stolen property? That's a whole different kind of receipts. And the next Redditor made sure their roommate learned that lesson the hard way. My roommate Jordan and I moved in together about 8 months ago. We found this decent 2-bedroom apartment, nothing fancy but affordable and in a good location. Before we signed the lease, we sat down and had what I thought was a really productive conversation about expectations. We agreed to split groceries and household items 50-50, keep shared spaces clean, communicate about any issues. It all seemed very mature and reasonable. For the first few months, things were fine. We had our routines, stayed out of each other's way when needed, hung out occasionally. It felt like a functional roommate situation. Then I started noticing things going missing. Small stuff at first. My expensive shampoo that I'd just bought would be half empty after a few days. Leftovers I'd specifically labeled with my name would disappear from the fridge. I'd buy a box of granola bars and they'd be gone by the end of the week, even though I'd maybe eaten 2. I tried to give Jordan the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they forgot we were splitting groceries and thought it was communal. Maybe they didn't realize the shampoo was mine. I brought it up casually one night, said I'd noticed some of my stuff going missing, and asked if maybe we needed to be clearer about what was shared versus personal. Jordan got immediately defensive, said they hadn't touched my things, that I was probably just forgetting what I'd used, that maybe I should keep better track of my own stuff if I was so concerned about it. It was such a weird response that it actually made me more suspicious, but I dropped it because I didn't want to create tension over what might have been a misunderstanding. Then money started disappearing. I keep some cash in my desk drawer for emergencies, usually around $100 in 20s. One day I went to grab some and realized there was only $40 left. I knew for a fact I hadn't spent it. I'd checked the drawer just a few days before and the full amount had been there. I counted it twice to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. I confronted Jordan again, asked point blank if they'd taken money from my room. Jordan looked at me like I'd accused them of murder, said absolutely not, that they couldn't believe I'd even asked that I was being paranoid and insulting. They said maybe I'd spent it and forgotten, or maybe I'd miscounted in the first place. Made me feel like I was the crazy one for even bringing it up. But I knew what I knew, so I did something I'm not particularly proud of, but also don't regret. I set up a small camera in the common area, one of those discreet ones that looks like a phone charger. I positioned it so it had a view of the kitchen and the hallway leading to my bedroom. Then I waited. Within a week, I had everything I needed. Footage of Jordan going through my groceries and taking things. Footage of them using my toiletries that I'd moved to my bedroom. And the kicker, footage of Jordan walking into my room while I was at work, opening my desk drawer, and taking 3 $20 bills from my emergency cash. I watched that last video 3 times just to make absolutely sure I was seeing what I thought I was seeing. There was no ambiguity. Jordan walked in, looked around to make sure nobody was home, opened the drawer, took the money, and left. Clear as day. I didn't confront Jordan immediately. I was angry, but I was also strategic. I saved all the footage to my laptop and a backup drive. Then I did something Jordan clearly hadn't thought about. I reviewed our lease. Our lease had very specific clauses. Tenants were responsible for paying their share of utilities on time. Jordan had been late on their half 3 times in the past 4 months, leaving me to cover the difference. There was a clause about unauthorized guests staying more than 3 consecutive nights. Jordan's partner had basically moved in for 2 weeks without asking or contributing to expenses. And of course, there was the standard clause about illegal activity and theft. Jordan had violated multiple terms of our lease agreement, and now I had documentation. I compiled everything. The camera footage, timestamps showing when utilities went unpaid, text messages where I'd asked Jordan to pay their share and gotten excuses. I wrote a formal complaint and sent it to our landlord with all the evidence attached. I kept my tone professional, just laid out the facts and referenced the specific lease violations. Our landlord responded within 24 hours, said they were taking this very seriously and would be in touch. 2 days later, Jordan received a formal notice, 30 days to vacate the premises due to lease violations. That's when everything unraveled. Jordan came home that evening and absolutely lost it. Started screaming at me, asking how I could do this, calling me vindictive and cruel. Said I was ruining their life over minor stuff, that I should have just talked to them instead of going nuclear. I just stood there and let them yell. When they finally ran out of steam, I very calmly said the lease speaks for itself. Jordan tried to argue, said the utilities thing was a mistake, that their partner staying over wasn't a big deal, that they never took my money. I pulled out my laptop and offered to show them the footage. They went pale, started backtracking, saying, okay, maybe they borrowed a few things, but they were going to replace them, that I was blowing this out of proportion, that we could work it out. I told them we were past that point. They'd been given multiple chances to be honest, and they'd chosen to gaslight me instead. They'd called me paranoid when I raised legitimate concerns. They'd stolen from me and lied to my face about it. The landlord had made their decision based on documented lease violations, and I wasn't going to ask them to reverse it. Jordan tried a few more tactics, crying, apologizing, promising to do better, then switching back to anger, saying I'd regret this, that I was a terrible person. None of it landed because I was just done. I'd given them the benefit of the doubt multiple times, and they'd proven they didn't deserve it. The next 30 days were incredibly uncomfortable. Jordan barely spoke to me except to make passive-aggressive comments. They'd slam doors, leave messes in the kitchen, play music loudly late at night. Petty stuff that was annoying but didn't rise to the level of another lease violation. I just kept my head down and counted the days. When Jordan finally moved out, the relief was immediate. I did a walkthrough of the apartment and found they'd taken a few more of my things on the way out. A set of nice kitchen knives, some books, a throw blanket. I documented it all and sent the list to the landlord in case Jordan tried to get their security deposit back. I wasn't interested in pursuing it further. I just wanted them gone. I found a new roommate within 2 weeks, someone a friend vouched for, who had good references and seemed genuinely respectful. We've been living together for 3 months now and it's night and day. They pay their share of everything on time, ask before using my stuff, communicate clearly. It's what a functional roommate relationship is supposed to look like. Looking back, I don't regret how I handled it. Some people think I should have given Jordan another chance, that eviction was too harsh, but here's the thing, I did give them chances. Multiple chances. Every time I brought up a concern, they could have been honest. They could have apologized and changed their behavior. Instead, they chose to lie, gaslight me, and continue stealing. The camera footage might seem extreme to some people, but it was the only way to prove what was happening. Jordan had made it clear they weren't going to admit to anything without undeniable evidence. And the lease violations weren't things I made up. They were documented facts. Jordan created the situation. I just made sure there were consequences. I've learned to trust my instincts. When something feels off, it usually is. And I've learned that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to stop giving people the benefit of the doubt when they've repeatedly proven they don't deserve it. Jordan is gone, my apartment is peaceful, and I can leave my stuff out without worrying it'll disappear. Best decision ever. Some people think the rules don't apply to them, especially when they're sleeping with the person who makes the rules. As the next story will prove, I work at a mid-sized company where promotions are supposed to be merit-based. At least that's what they tell you in the employee handbook and during those corporate culture presentations. For 2 years, I watched my coworker Ashley climb the ladder, while I stayed stuck in the same position, doing the same work, getting the same polite rejections every time I applied for advancement. Ashley wasn't bad at her job, but she wasn't exceptional either. She met deadlines mostly. She contributed in meetings sometimes, but her work was mediocre at best. Meanwhile, I was pulling extra shifts, leading projects, mentoring new hires, doing everything you're supposed to do when you want to move up. And every time a promotion opportunity came up, I'd apply, interview well, and then get passed over. And every single time, Ashley would get it instead. The first time it happened, I told myself maybe I'd misjudged her capabilities. Maybe she was better than I thought. The second time, I started to wonder. The third time, I knew something was off. Nobody gets promoted that consistently on average performance. There had to be another reason. I started paying attention, really paying attention. And that's when I noticed the pattern. Ashley and our boss Mark took a lot of long lunches together. They'd leave the office around noon and not come back for 2, sometimes 3 hours. When I'd see them return, they'd come in separately, a few minutes apart, like they were trying not to be obvious about it. They'd disappear into conference rooms for meetings that weren't on the calendar. They'd exchange these looks across the room during team gatherings, little smiles that lasted just a beat too long. And Mark's entire demeanor would change when Ashley was around. He'd laugh at her jokes that weren't funny, compliment work that was barely competent, defend her when other people raised valid concerns about her projects. I started documenting things, not because I had a plan yet, just because I wanted to make sure I wasn't imagining it. I noted the dates and times of their extended lunches. I kept track of Ashley's promotions and the timeline of when they seemed to get closer. I paid attention to how Mark reviewed her work versus how he reviewed everyone else's. Then one day I overheard them on a call. I was working late, thought the office was empty. I walked past a conference room and heard voices. The door was cracked just slightly, and I recognized Mark's voice immediately. He was talking to someone, and his tone was completely different from his professional voice. It was intimate, flirtatious. He was saying things no boss should ever say to an employee. Then I heard Ashley laugh, that same laugh she did in meetings, but warmer, more genuine. She said something I couldn't quite make out, and Mark responded with something about missing her, about how hard it was to keep things professional during work hours. I stood there frozen for a second, then quietly walked back to my desk. My suspicions weren't suspicions anymore. They were having an affair, and it was absolutely affecting how he managed the team. Here's where it gets absurd. I started going through publicly available information, expense reports that employees could access through our company portal, performance reviews that were shared during team calibration sessions, promotion announcements and their justifications, and I found a pattern so obvious I couldn't believe nobody else had noticed it. Ashley's performance reviews were glowing, but the specific accomplishments listed were either exaggerated or things other people had done that she'd tangentially been involved in. Mark's expense reports showed repeated business lunches and dinners at expensive restaurants, always for 2 people, always on days when Ashley also had approved expenses at the same locations and times. Her promotions weren't just frequent, they coincided perfectly with key moments, right after they'd started taking those long lunches, right after a weekend company retreat where several people had mentioned seeing them together. I compiled everything into a detailed report: dates, times, expense receipts, performance review discrepancies, promotion timelines. I cross-referenced everything, made sure it was airtight. Then I created an anonymous email account and sent the whole thing to HR with a clear subject line: ethics violation and favoritism concern. I didn't editorialize, I didn't add emotional commentary about how unfair it was or how frustrated I'd been. I just presented the facts and let the evidence speak for itself. Here are the dates they had lunch together. Here are the expense reports. Here are Ashley's promotions despite performance that doesn't match the reviews. Here's the pattern. Do with it what you will. HR responded fast. I wasn't part of those conversations, obviously, but word travels in an office. Within a week, there was an investigation. People were being called in for confidential interviews. Mark and Ashley both seemed stressed, whispering to each other in corners, leaving the office for hushed phone calls. The investigation took about a month. During that time, the energy in the office was tense. People knew something was happening, but nobody knew exactly what. There were rumors, speculation. Some people thought it was about financial impropriety. Others thought someone was getting fired for harassment. Nobody seemed to connect it to Mark and Ashley specifically. What happened next? Nobody saw it coming. The announcement came in an all-hands meeting. Mark was being transferred to a different department. A lateral move in title, but clearly a demotion in responsibility. He'd no longer be managing anyone. Ashley's most recent promotion was being rescinded. She'd go back to her previous role and title. And the company was implementing new oversight procedures for promotions and manager relationships to ensure fairness and prevent conflicts of interest. They didn't say why directly, they didn't mention the affair, but everyone understood. The pieces clicked into place for people who'd been paying attention. The long lunches, the favoritism, the sudden investigation. It all made sense. Mark left the company entirely within 2 months. Took a job somewhere else, probably saw the writing on the wall that his reputation here was done. Ashley stayed, but she's different now. Quieter, less confident. She does her work and goes home. Doesn't try to glad hand or network the way she used to. People treat her professionally, but there's a distance there that wasn't before. I never revealed I was the whistleblower. As far as anyone knows, it could have been any number of people who noticed the same patterns I did. I've been asked a few times if I knew anything about what happened, and I just said I heard the same rumors as everyone else. The workplace feels different now, fairer, more transparent. When promotion decisions get made, there's actual committee review instead of one manager deciding. Performance metrics are clearer. People feel like they have a real shot at advancement if they do good work. I got promoted about 6 months after the whole thing went down. Applied for a position, went through the new formal process, and actually got it based on my work. It felt earned in a way I'm not sure it would have before, when everything was so arbitrary and dependent on who you knew or what relationship you had with management. Looking back, I don't feel guilty about what I did. Some people might say I should have minded my business, that people's personal lives are their own. But this wasn't just about a personal relationship. It was about that relationship directly impacting workplace fairness. It was about promotions being handed out based on favoritism instead of merit. It was about other employees, including me, being passed over despite doing everything right. Mark and Ashley made choices. They chose to have an affair in a workplace where he had direct authority over her career. They chose to hide it while he gave her unearned advantages. And when those choices created an unfair environment, someone had to do something about it. That someone happened to be me. And honestly, I'd do it again, because workplaces should be fair, promotions should be based on performance. And when someone abuses their power for personal gain, they deserve to face consequences. The office is better now, people trust the system more, and I finally got the recognition I'd been working toward for years, not because of who I knew or what favors I could call in, but because I earned it. Power dynamics can corrupt everything, but when someone mocks your dreams and you succeed anyway, the vindication is unmatched. My friend Lily and I met in college. We bonded over late-night study sessions and shared dreams about what we'd do after graduation. I always knew I wanted to work for myself, build something from the ground up. I'd talk about starting a freelance design company, being my own boss, creating work I was actually proud of. Lily would nod along, but there was always this undertone of skepticism in her responses. When I finally took the leap and started putting together a business plan, Lily's skepticism turned into outright mockery. She'd laugh when I mentioned my goals, tell me I was being unrealistic, that freelancing was unstable, and I'd never make it. She'd ask when I was going to get a real job, like my dreams were some kind of phase I needed to grow out of. Every conversation where I tried to share my progress ended with her dismissing it or changing the subject. At first, I tried to brush it off, told myself she was just being practical, that maybe she was concerned about me. But the comments kept coming, and they started to sting. When I landed my first small client, I was so excited. I told Lily, and she said that's cute, like I'd just gotten a gold star in kindergarten. When I was working 16-hour days to build my portfolio and client base, she'd make jokes about me wasting my time. I stopped sharing things with her, stopped talking about my business, my goals, anything that mattered to me professionally. Our friendship became surface level, just occasional texts and meetups where we'd talk about nothing important. But I kept working, I kept pushing forward even when it was hard, even when I had doubts, even when her voice was in the back of my head telling me I'd never make it. 2 years later, my business was thriving. I'd landed major clients, big names that gave me credibility and financial stability. I was making more than I ever had at a traditional job, and I was doing work I actually cared about. I posted about a particularly exciting project on social media. Nothing over the top, just a professional update thanking my clients and celebrating the milestone. Lily commented almost immediately, congratulated me, said she always knew I'd do great things, acting like she'd been supportive all along. I stared at that comment for a long time, feeling this mix of anger and vindication, because I remembered. I remembered every dismissive laugh, every time she called my dreams unrealistic, every moment she made me feel small for wanting something different. A few weeks later, she reached out asking if I wanted to collaborate on a project. Said she had a client who needed design work and thought of me. The audacity of it, honestly. She'd spent years telling me I'd fail, and now that I was successful, she wanted to benefit from it. I declined politely, told her my schedule was full, which was true, but that wasn't really why I said no. Then I made a post, a genuine one, thanking everyone who'd supported me during the hard early days of building my business. I named names, tagged people who'd given me advice, who'd referred clients, who'd believed in me when I was just starting out and had nothing to show for it yet. I talked about how much their support meant, especially when others doubted. I named everyone who'd helped, everyone except Lily. The message was clear, at least to anyone who knew our history, and Lily definitely got it. Here's where it gets absurd. Mutual friends started reaching out, asking what happened between us. Some were genuinely curious, others were clearly fishing for drama. I didn't blast Lily publicly or post some dramatic call-out. I just told people the truth when they asked. I said I don't work with people who bet against me, that I remember who supported my dreams and who mocked them, and that I choose to surround myself with people who lift me up instead of tearing me down. Word spread pretty quickly. Our mutual friends started putting the pieces together, remembering Lily's comments over the years, the way she'd talk about my business like it was a joke. Some people told me they'd always thought her attitude was harsh but hadn't said anything at the time. Others admitted they'd noticed the shift in how she treated me once I started succeeding. Lily unfriended me on everything, social media, messaging apps, all of it. I woke up one morning and she'd just completely cut ties. Part of me expected an angry message, some kind of confrontation, but she just disappeared from my online life without a word. A few people told me I was being petty, that I should have just declined the collaboration privately and moved on. That publicly thanking everyone except her was a pointed snub. And yeah, it was. I'm not going to pretend it wasn't. But here's what those people don't seem to get. Lily had spent years publicly undermining my goals. She didn't pull me aside privately to express concern. She laughed at me in front of other friends. She made jokes at my expense. She created an environment where people thought it was okay to doubt me. So when I succeeded, when I'd proven that my unrealistic dreams were actually achievable, I made sure people knew who'd been in my corner. And by omission, who hadn't. The whole thing taught me something important about friendship. Real friends support you even when your dreams seem impossible. They might express concern about the risks, might ask if you have a backup plan, but they don't mock you. They don't tear you down or make you feel stupid for wanting something different. Lily wasn't a real friend. She was someone I'd known for a long time who happened to still be in my life out of habit, more than genuine connection. And when I finally acknowledged that and acted accordingly, it felt like freedom. My business is still growing. I've brought on contractors, expanded my services, built a reputation I'm genuinely proud of. The people I thanked in that post are still in my life, still supporting me, still celebrating wins and helping through challenges. That's the kind of community I want. People who believe in me, or at the very least respect my ambitions even if they don't fully understand them. Lily is doing fine. From what I hear through mutual acquaintances, she has her own career, her own life. I don't wish her ill. I just don't want her in my orbit anymore. Some relationships run their course, and trying to maintain them past their expiration date just breeds resentment. People ask if I regret how I handled it, if I should have been more direct or had a conversation with her before making that post. Honestly, no. Lily had years to be a supportive friend. Years to say, hey, I know I've been dismissive, but I'm really proud of what you're building. She didn't. She only showed interest when there was something in it for her. I succeeded without her support, and I made sure people knew exactly who deserved credit for that success. If that makes me petty, I'm okay with it, because the people who matter, the ones who were actually there, they understood. And Lily's absence from my life has been nothing but positive. I don't work with people who bet against me. I don't maintain friendships with people who only show up when it's convenient for them. And I'm completely fine with Lily having unfriended me, because honestly, I'd already unfriended her in every way that mattered long before she made it official. Support matters, but so does honesty, and when location history exposes a lie, There's no coming back from that kind of truth. My partner Sam had been working late a lot, 3, 4 times a week, sometimes more. It had been going on for maybe 2 months at that point. Sam worked in consulting, so irregular hours weren't completely unusual. Big projects, demanding clients, tight deadlines. I got it. I'd been understanding, supportive even. I'd have dinner waiting when Sam got home late, ask how the project was going, try to be the kind of partner who doesn't add stress to an already stressful situation. I trusted Sam completely. The thought that something might be off never even crossed my mind. We'd been together for 4 years, lived together for 2. We talked about getting married, about buying a house, about the future. I had no reason to doubt anything. Then one night I needed to use Sam's laptop. Mine was updating and I had to send an urgent email for work. Sam was in the shower and the laptop was sitting on the coffee table. I opened it, logged into my email, sent what I needed to send. Simple enough. But when I went to close the browser, I noticed Google Maps was open in another tab. Sam's location history was pulled up, still logged in. I wasn't snooping. It was just there, right in front of me, and I noticed something immediately. On the night Sam said he was working late, the location pins weren't at the office. They were at an address I didn't recognize, an address across town. My stomach dropped. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe it was a client's office. Maybe it was a co-working space, but something about it felt wrong. I clicked on the address and looked it up. It was an apartment complex, not an office building, not a co-working space, just a regular residential apartment complex in a neighborhood we had no connection to. I sat there staring at the screen, trying to make sense of it. Part of me wanted to close the laptop and pretend I hadn't seen anything, but I couldn't. I screenshotted the location history, saved it to my phone. Then I closed everything and put the laptop back exactly where it had been. When Sam came out of the shower, I acted normal. Asked about their day, talked about mine, went through our usual evening routine. But inside, I was spinning. I didn't confront Sam that night. I needed to be sure. I needed more than one data point. The next time Sam said they were working late, I waited. I didn't say anything, just noted the time they left and when they said they'd be home. Then I checked the laptop again. Same address, same apartment complex. Sam had been there for hours. I did this 3 more times over the next 2 weeks. Every single time Sam claimed to be working late, the location history showed that apartment. Not the office, not anywhere work-related. Just that same address, over and over. That's when everything unraveled. The 5th time it happened, I decided I was done collecting evidence. I knew what I needed to know. When Sam came home that night around 10, I was waiting in the living room. Sam walked in, dropped their bag by the door, gave me the usual tired smile, asked if I'd eaten, said the project was killing them, the usual script. I asked how work was. Sam launched into the story, talked about a difficult client, a presentation that went long, how exhausting it all was. I just sat there listening, waiting for them to finish. When they were done, I very calmly pulled out my phone, opened the screenshot I'd saved, turned the screen towards Sam and asked, "So whose apartment is this?" Sam's face went completely pale. The color just drained. They opened their mouth, closed it, opened it again. Tried to say something, but nothing came out. I've never seen someone's entire demeanor collapse that fast. I didn't yell, didn't cry, just asked the question again. Whose apartment is this and why have you been going there every time you tell me you're working late? The truth came out in pieces. At first, Sam tried to say it was a co-worker's place, that they'd been working on the project there. I pulled up the location history and showed them the timestamps. You've been there until midnight, Sam. You've been there on weekends. Stop lying. Then the real story came. Sam had been seeing someone else for months. They'd met at a work event, started talking, and it escalated. The late nights weren't about work. They were about this other person, this whole other relationship Sam had been maintaining while coming home to me every night and pretending everything was fine. I asked if they loved this person. Sam said they didn't know. I asked if they'd been planning to tell me. Sam said eventually, maybe. They weren't sure. Every answer was vague, non-committal, like Sam hadn't actually thought through any of this beyond the immediate gratification of sneaking around. I told Sam to pack a bag and leave. Sam tried to argue, said we should talk about this, that maybe we could work through it. I said there was nothing to work through. You lied to me for months. You built an entire second life and let me believe we were solid. There's no coming back from that. Sam tried a few more times to convince me we could fix things, cried, apologized, said it was a mistake and they'd end it with the other person. But I was done. The betrayal wasn't just the cheating, it was the sustained deception. The coming home every night and lying to my face, the letting me worry about their stress levels and workload when really they were just off with someone else. Sam left that night, stayed with a friend, I assume, or maybe went to that apartment. I didn't ask and didn't care. The next few weeks were a blur. Sam tried reaching out, sent long texts about how sorry they were, how they wanted to explain everything. I blocked them, changed the locks, started the process of untangling our lives. It was messy and painful, but I didn't waver. What kept me grounded was knowing I'd made the right call. Because here's the thing, if I hadn't stumbled onto that location history, how much longer would it have gone on? How many more months or years would Sam have lied? Would they have ever told me? Or would I have just kept living in this false reality they'd constructed? People asked me how I stayed so calm during the confrontation. Honestly, I think I was in shock. The hurt and anger came later, in waves, usually late at night when I was alone. But in that moment, I just needed answers. And once I had them, I needed Sam gone. I don't regret how I handled it. Some people said I should have given Sam a chance to explain before kicking them out, that maybe there were reasons or context I didn't understand. But what context makes months of lying okay? What explanation justifies building a relationship with someone else while your partner thinks everything is fine? The location history didn't lie. The timestamps, the patterns, the evidence was all right there. Sam made choices repeatedly, over months. And when those choices came to light, they tried to minimize and deflect instead of taking real responsibility. I'm still rebuilding, still processing, still figuring out how to trust again after being so thoroughly deceived by someone I thought I knew inside and out. But I'm also relieved. Relieved that I found out when I did. Relieved that I didn't waste more years on someone who was capable of that level of dishonesty. The location history doesn't lie, and neither do I anymore, and that's where we'll leave it tonight. 15 stories, 15 people who decided enough was enough, whether it was a coworker, a partner, a family member, or a so-called friend. The thing about boundaries is this: they only work if you're willing to enforce them. And sometimes enforcing them means burning a bridge or two. But you know what? That's okay. Not every bridge is worth keeping. If you've made it this far, thank you for being here. Drop a comment and let me know which story hit the hardest, or if you've ever had to set a boundary that cost you a relationship. I read every single one. Sweet dreams, everyone, and remember, your peace is worth protecting, even if it costs you people. See you in the next one.